Welcome everybody to Between Rounds. I'm Jake. I'm here with ZP, and today we're going to be jumping into the most recent Deadlock Hero tier list.
That's right. We know people as they watch Deadlock, especially programs like Deadlock Fight Night, they wonder, what is the best thing I could be playing? I want to get good at Deadlock. I want to see what is going to be good. And you know what? We got you. Right here, we're going to rank all the heroes in the game, tell you what's good, what's not, and what you should be targeting to play in your next games.
Yeah, and ZP, I think there's been some changes. I mean, we pushed our first tier list of the new map, the new meta last week, but it was very speculative. You know, we were kind of going on a lot of theses, and, you know, even the pro players this week in Deadlock Fight Night, we saw a ton of adaptation. So I think there's been some definite winners and losers as far as this initial tier list.
And you know, now we have the initial tier list out, this will be a little bit of a shorter video as we go more about like the changes and where we see here. And, we talked a little bit off broadcast, but, to bring it immediately back in the focus. Last week, when we looked at the matches, Holiday just seemed like S tier, won every game. Holiday in this last setup of matches, though, not quite the same level of dominance. Do we still think Holiday is S tier?
I think the S tier is gonna be a little bit quieter this week, and I although Sinclair was only played in one game and lost that one game, I do still feel that Sinclair has more to show us, and was still, to be fair, was still first banned by pretty much every team, was only let through a single time. So although we didn't see much Sinclair, I still feel like Sinclair's up there. But Holiday, I feel this is strong, but maybe not that much better than Paradox. We saw Paradox, in terms of that one-to-one matchup, win out pretty often. Holiday didn't have the best showing, and so while I still think she's great, I just think maybe not quite a tier above A tier right now.
Yeah, I mean, you look at who's in the A tier, right? Maybe there's a world where there's one person in A tier we can move up, but I definitely don't necessarily value Holiday as much as, say, or like at a level above Mirage. So Holiday, we got to move down a tier, maybe behind Mirage for where it's. I don't know. Where do you think? In front of Mirage, behind?
I want to put Kelvin in S tier right now.
Yes.
Is that crazy? I just think he was just pick priored so high, banned a bit in NA. I mean, it just seems to be so critical at high level play. I wonder in ranked, like if you're duoing with somebody, you have that healing combo and you can go for like the very, support oriented build and ranked. I think Kelvin is just the best in the business right now. It's clearly above in terms of pick prio all the other supports.
Kelvin is number one for the supports, and I think when you look at what he does to the late game, where he was such a crucial linchpin when he was played at teams winning in the late game, he does too much. He's great early in the mid game, and he's one of the biggest walls for just making you win late game engagements. I feel like he has to be S tier right now. And even in your ranked games, think about this. Even if you're not the best Kelvin player in the world and you're just looking to get better at him, if you're playing Kelvin, that means Kelvin isn't playing against you. Like, that's a double benefit right there.
Yeah, sniping it away. Thinking about tier promotions, though, my first thought is I almost want to put Yamato in S tier. I know, Ooh. I think that's a little, it's hard to say, but at least Yamato should be like near the top of A tier. I think Yamato, like the fact that you can put all those golden statue buffs on her by letting her do this in her sacrifices, letting her be this like ultimate late game, hard carry threat. That was really successful this week in Deadlock Fight Night. And I think in ranked games where it's a little bit more easy to consistently get to like a super high farm level, I feel like Yamato could be an even more consistent threat for players.
I'm torn. It's either back of S tier or front of A tier, because I definitely value Yamato right now over Mirage just because of the late game ramps that people are doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put it in direct S tier.
Maybe we give her one more week. We give her one more week to see if other teams follow suit on this. But I agree. I think she's been promoted to the top of A tier.
I got another promotion.
Yeah, go.
My promotion here, heroes I want to promote, I think Grey Talon has to go up a few spots. Like, we saw ridiculous Grey Talon plays all day long. I think the 3-map setup has actually helped him quite a bit. There's more verticality, which, led to some of those cinematic arrow finishes. I think Rain of Arrows in general actually plays really well with it. The Owl, I feel like, has gotten more value than it ever has. I would put him at a minimum. I don't know if it's above Wraith, because I still think Wraith is ridiculous, but at the very least, I'd put it behind Wraith is where I'm at for Grey Talon right now.
Yeah, I like the promotion. We saw a lot of, like in NA, we saw some Yamato Grey Talon late game setups, and the Spirit Nuke was out of control with those two heroes. In general, I think we saw some Spirit focused carries looking a little bit stronger this week. More teams prioritizing that, going that direction as far as where you're going to invest your resources. And Great Talon is a great like semi carry. You're not going to be frontlining and taking the damage pretty much ever on Great Talon, but when you're farmed and you're just like pumping that ranged nuke, it's pretty incredible, pretty hard to deal with, especially if you've got a frontline making space for you. Another hero I want to promote is Bebop. Actually, I think Bebop is an A tier hero from watching this week. I think Bebop was prioritized in both regions. I think with the focus on denying in the lanes now, Bebop's a master denier. And on top of that, makes it scary for the enemy team to deny because you're constantly threatening hooks.
That's a really, really good point, because one change that got kind of glossed over is that the new change to the map, the 90 millisecond deny buffer is gone. It is just pure on who hits it first. So it does make ping more viable, but more than anything else, or ping more of a factor, I should say. But it also makes weapon velocity more of a factor, which makes Bebop a bigger threat in lane. So I think that's a really good point. I don't know if I put him necessarily above Mo, because I think Mo was like still used in a lot of comps, but maybe right behind Mo is where I'm thinking. Unless it's your call out, you get to play some. Where are you thinking?
I think it's fine behind Mo, like right with Mo, maybe above Ivy. I also want to say, because A tier is getting a little crowded, I think there's got to be some demotions here. I kind of feel like, for me, Pocket, I just wasn't blown away by Pocket this week. I felt maybe it is a little bit more of a B tier choice.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Pocket's always hard to like sort of rate because it's so user dependent. But even still, I mean, even the people that love to play Pocket, like you think about what we saw with Ido, right? Like, you catch Ido, it's like he's like, catch me with Yamato, as far as that goes, right? So yeah, even the people that really are good on Pocket are not necessarily prioritizing Pocket the way they used to be. And he's not a strong meta pick overall. I think him going down the B is fine.
And then as far as promotions from B tier, I mean, VP is like kind of the only team that was using Vindicta, but they first picked it in both games. And I just feel maybe I'm just like putting too much faith in VP, but I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, that just like alone makes me want to promote Vindicta out of the B tier, just because the best team, I would say the best team in the world right now is first pick prioing. Clearly they know something, and I'm pretty confident they know more about Deadlock than I do.
I think in terms of promotions, based on that same logic, given the fact that they were able to use Abrams really well, on the whole, I don't know if I bring Abrams all the way back up into, his first letter name tier, but bare minimum, you'd have to think front of B. I don't know. It's like A tier is crowded. What are you thinking? Like bottom A, top?
It's tough, but I honestly think just like both regions, everyone was really prioing Abrams. It felt like it was really crucial. People building Phantom Strike and like using him as this like late game catch threat.
True.
Super effective, super successful. We saw like really big games from from VP, Listic on the Abrams too. I'm ready to put Abrams in the first letter name tier in A. Maybe he's like down at the bottom of A, but I think this could be a real rising stocks moment for Abrams, with maybe also a pretty strong hero when it comes to denying souls. With the shotgun is like so easy to land that deny really, really consistently, more effective than frankly I was expecting.
I'm thinking about shift ups here with how good Yamato was. Do we still think 7 is absolutely an S tier, or are we down for a shift where maybe we put Yamato back of S tier and 7 top of A tier?
I still like 7. I still feel like he was really strong, but I feel like I feel like Kelvin might be the top of S tier. Is that crazy? Kelvin is like,
no.
It's weird to put a support, because a support is doing a different thing than a carry, right? Support is not going to be crushing the game and getting tons of kills and tons of damage, but that's not what Deadlock's about, right? It's in the end, it's a MOBA shooter, so you got to factor in these like different types of impact have to be compared against one another when we're making a tier list. So I would be down to like demote 7, maybe to the bottom of S tier. I'm also down for Yamato being in S tier, maybe also at the bottom, maybe below 7 or next to 7, because I just was super impressed. Like for me, I'm for sure planning to like go into ranked next week and play a bunch of Yamato. Like with the way teams were able to get super crazy farm to this hero and just like go ultra late game, I was really impressed. And then Yamato has always had that factor of being a great frontliner in the late game, able to tank initiations. Like that's historically been an amazing role for her back when like Gun Yamato was super strong. Now people are going to go for more of the spirit focused build, a little bit more natural, but still this is that late game, like 1vx hero, and there's almost no one else in Deadlock who can do exactly what she does.
Here's a question. Paradox, given that Paradox and Holiday had more parity, is there too much separation between Holiday and Paradox one way or another here? Whether it be Holiday too high or Paradox too low?
I would honestly want to move Holiday down just to like next to Lash and Paradox. I felt like
Hmm.
Lash we also didn't talk about yet. Lash had a huge week in NA, but I think all three of these heroes are great. I don't know that any of them is like a critical must pick, but clearly these like mobility disruption playmakers are all high prioed, and I think it's more on player preference, on like a team's stylistic approach to the game, as far as which heroes they end up drafting. Lash I think is a little bit more different, maybe Lash, I don't know if it could be above Paradox and Holiday. Those are still, I think, a little bit more core. But in NA, at least, Lash, I would say, was prioed really, really high, and higher than I would have honestly expected from the tier list.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird things where I don't feel comfortable playing Lash above Holiday and Paradox, given
Yeah.
that he's effectively a playmaker, and it's just about where you want to put him. I still think, generally speaking, teams, if they had to get like one playmaker, they'll still go for Holiday or Paradox. But Lash was kind of like the option teams would go for, especially if neither Holiday nor Paradox were available. Also, so I think I'm okay with where it's at.
Yeah, I'm okay with how it is now too. I wonder though, should Calico be up next to Geist, maybe even above Geist in the A tier? Because I mean, they were both really strong, but Calico, I was impressed with the super high prio that teams were taking her this week.
I think she has to be because she's just as much a frontline threat and
Mhm.
she's really hard to kill. Like the amount of Return the Shadow saves that we saw was ridiculous, especially like that one play where you happen to have a Holiday on your team and then you bounce pad, Return the Shadow, like go into Ava form mid-air. I mean, Calico is so slippery for a frontliner that her ability to take a lot of attention at the beginning of the fight and still live to tell the tale is kind of ridiculous. I think moving Calico up is warranted. But
And also,
also,
I think the deep split pushing from Calico is another factor for people playing Calico. Like you use this incredible level of survivability with your E shift and your ulti and Ava form, and then you're pushing lanes super deep, super aggressively. The enemy's all responding to you, and you're just living. You're actually contributing so much on the map with that. It's not necessarily like a hard carry play. You're probably not getting tons and tons of kills the way Calico was being played, I think, right when she came out. But it's still having this like unique type of impact that's pretty hard to replace in the meta right now.
also in terms of like targets for shifts, maybe this is uncalled for, but the reality is we just haven't seen much of it recently, and teams aren't valuing it that high. I think we move Haze down the C tier, top of C tier. Like,
Yeah. Haze was untouched this week, kind of a non-factor. I think it's fair to say the emotion there. I mean, to be fair, all the C and D tier have pretty much been untouched for a little bit here. So maybe expecting some balance passes to come their way. I feel like I've seen some Haze in rank still, but I think at the highest level, we're seeing more and more teams shy away and just go for, I think, heroes with a little bit more of a diverse fighting utility, where Haze, I think, is a little bit too pick-off oriented at the top level, where, teams are just showing up, they're backing each other up in these team fights, and being all in on a pick-off is not really the way to carry the game.
also, maybe this is controversial, but based on pick rate and what people were valuing. And it's not that Furnace was necessarily bad or Viscus was that bad. I mean, we did see Viscus a few times, but I kind of think we got to move Shiv up maybe above Warden. Like Shiv saw
Yeah.
some play.
Yeah, I think Shiv should maybe be the top of B tier. I would say even above Pocket.
Yeah.
Because Shiv did look good. Like they lost the game on, I think that was the one in Paravision game, but Paravision lost. But the Shiv was having big moments, right? Was turning fights around, was holding down towers with Kelvin behind you. And honestly, partly I think Shiv is a little bit buffed by Kelvin being such an insanely good hero right now, because anyone who can pump heals on Shiv really takes him to the next level in terms of how far you can push it, pushing the limit with that deferred damage and still getting healed, still surviving through those engagements. So yeah, I'm down for the upgrade to Shiv. Even Viscus, I would say. I mean, it's interesting because it's kind of like only Gibbs from Melee Creeps in NA, but they were first picking the Viscus. I don't know if that. I don't think that's worthy, frankly, of like an A tier promotion. But I do feel like Viscus maybe could be like above Warden. It's a small move, but it's something.
I agree. I think you put Viscus one, above Warden, and that's kind of where we're at. And looking at the list overall, I might be close to done here. I don't really think
Yeah.
I don't see anything else I really want to tweak. I feel like everything now is about where it should be. I don't know if you got anything, but
No,
to
I
me,
like
looking
this.
at
I
this,
like this.
it seems good.
Yeah, I like this. I'm excited to go abuse Yamato in my rank games for a few days after watching what the pros do. It's definitely my hero. I also kind of want to learn to play Sinclair. He's like looks pretty interesting, pretty unique, and like all the creativity that plays. In the one match I think we saw him in Deadlock Fight Night. I was like, okay, I can see the vision here. It's kind of making me interested in learning this. Maybe I'll even learn a little Kelvin, play a little support. That could be up my alley as well.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Kelvin. If for nothing else, if you're playing Kelvin, they don't have a Kelvin. It's the double win where you have given yourself one of the strongest heroes and you have removed it from the other team. So, yeah, I think if you go to your ranked games this week, Yamato, Kelvin focused, it'll be difficult to be going wrong.
All right, guys. That's been our week 2 tier list here on Between Rounds. We're going to wrap it up there. As always, let us know down in the comments what kind of content, what kind of things you want to see. If you disagree with this tier list, you think that we've done something drastically wrong, let us know in the comments. We'll try to address that in the coming weeks. Yeah, and just thanks so much for being here, for supporting us. We'll see you next week on Deadlock Fight Night.